respected viewers, students of literature and those who are interested in literature, welcome to this session on Shakespeare. We are discussing his play, his famous fascinating comedy, The Taming of the Shrew. Although this play has held audiences as well as readers spellbound right from the day when it was written, it sounds strange that critical attention has not been so warm towards it. In fact, it has suffered from critical neglect. What could be the reason for this critical neglect? Was it because critics like George Bernard Shaw and Michael Billington dismissed this play because of its being barbaric and disgusting? In fact, these are the words used by critics like G.B. Shaw and Billington, saying that the play sounds in the ultimate analysis as barbaric and disgusting. In 1953, Russell Brown, a Shakespearean critic, conducted a survey about Shakespearean criticism and about the way in which Shakespeare's plays have been received by critics in particular, not common readers. And he found out that 3 of the plays have been dismissed by most critics as farces rather than comedies. The Merry Wives of Windsor, Comedy of Errors, and The Taming of the Shrew. Now, to this one can always say that farce is ultimately a subgenre of comedy, and if farce assumes authentic literary shape, if it has an authentic literary quality about it, we cannot dismiss it simply because it seems to us farcical. But there is a different way of approaching the play today. When we read it as modern readers, conscious of the revolution that has taken place in modern times, in our attitudes towards society, in our attitudes towards gender in particular, we see that the play assumes an immediate relevance to our situation. It is what is these days called a problem play. A problem play is not simply a play which treats a particular problem, because more or less all plays treat of some problem or the other. I will give you the definition of the problem play, because this definition will stand you in good stead whenever you are approaching modern drama, particularly the drama that was written in late 19th century and 20th century and is being still written in the 21st century. Ernest Schanzer defined a problem play in these words, and I read his definition because this is the best critical approach to The Taming of the Shrew. Although I should forewarn you in advance that Schanzer never included The Taming of the Shrew in the problem plays. But when we read it from a modern perspective, we see that it is a problem play. How did Schanzer define a problem play? This is his definition: a play in which we find a concern with a moral problem which is central to it, presented in such a manner that we are unsure of our moral bearings, so that uncertain and divided responses to it in the minds of the audience are possible or even probable. This is Schanzer's definition of a problem play. And there is no doubt that the most fruitful approach, critical approach, for a student, for a scholar, to The Taming of the Shrew is to see it as a problem play. It assumes significance in the modern situation from 2 points of view: from the psychological point of view and from the feminist angle of vision. Well, psychologically, a play like The Taming of the Shrew would always attract readers as well as people who go to watch the play in the theatre, because of intrinsic interest in the process of the taming of a shrew. Now, from ancient and medieval times down to modern times, this problem has remained one of the most central problems for human thought. Who is a shrew? Why is a particular woman a shrew? The ancient and medieval explanation was that a shrew is possessed by the devil. The name that was used for the shrews in ancient and medieval times was the shrew is a devil's dame, and the devil or the genie who has possessed her has to be exorcised. And we all know the various ways of exorcising a spirit or a genie or the devil who has possessed someone. So, in medieval times they would take recourse to the various mantras, to the various talismans, to the various ways in which they would scare away or exorcise the devil. Today, we take it as a psychological problem and try to find out the origin of the problem. Is it within the congenital makeup of that particular woman who is a shrew? Is it in the circumstances, in the situation in which a particular woman is born and brought up? It is because a particular woman has not received proper attention at the formative stage of her life that she has grown into a shrew. In modern novels, modern plays, modern short stories, this problem has been approached from this point of view by some of the greatest writers of the world. And some of them locate the reasons in the situation in which a person is born, in which a person is brought up, a particular woman. In any case, it is taken to be a psychological problem, a problem of imbalance, and psychiatric devices are adopted to restore the balance. One of the grounds on which Shakespeare's greatness rests is that he is never time bound. Anywhere, whether he is describing ghosts or witches in Macbeth, everywhere he describes these things in a way that they bear a modern reading, a modern interpretation, a very fine, most updated, most developed modern reading and modern interpretation. So is the case with his presentation of the shrew. So the shrew appears to be ultimately a bundle of psychological problems, and those problems have made the whole system awry, and psychiatric ways may be adopted or found out or identified in order to restore the balance. But more important than this thematic interest is the feminist interest of the play. And because of this feminist interest, which has unfortunately been ignored so far, it assumes a very modern relevance, relevant to us, relevant to the Western situation, relevant everywhere now that feminism is very much in the air. Feminists would straight away say that this play is humiliating to womanhood. Now, if you read the play, Shakespeare has as if he has in mind the problems that have been raised, the questions that have been raised by the feminists. Shakespeare's answer would be to those who say that it is humiliating from the feminist point of view. Shakespeare would say that I am depicting a shrew and not a woman as such. Shakespeare's women include, we know, Portia, Desdemona, Emilia, Cordelia. Shakespeare's women include great women, women who are embodiments of all feminist virtues. And Shakespeare's women also include a shrew like Katharina. And here he is depicting a shrew, not a woman as such. And besides, when you reach the end of the play, when the taming process of the shrew is complete and she is converted into a woman, as it were, you meet with a different woman. To that I will come a little later. It has been pointed out by some of the Shakespeare critics that Petruchio, if you place Petruchio in the tradition of the taming of the shrew, he is much more humane than shrew tamers in the old tradition of medieval Europe. I'll quote an extract from N. Barton, one of the perceptive Shakespeare critics. So she's a woman, We have to bear that in mind. And she says that to me Petruchio has not sounded to be barbaric or in any way humiliating towards women. This is Anne Barton. She places Petruchio in a whole tradition of those characters who have been involved in the taming of the shrews in medieval literature, medieval folklore, medieval folk tales. This is Anne Barton. By comparison with the husband who binds his erring spouse, beats her, bleeds her into a state of debility, or incarcerates her inside the salted skin of a dead horse, Petruchio, although he is no Romeo, is almost a model of intelligence and humanity. See the ways which were adopted in medieval times to tame the shrew: beat her, bleed her, incarcerate her, put her into the salted skin of a dead horse. Says Petruchio in comparison seems to be a picture of humanity. He is a model of intelligence and humanity according to Anne Barton. Nor should we forget that Shakespeare is presenting a shrew primarily with the purpose of creating fun. Now that is very obvious from the frame that he provides in the beginning of the play. The story of Christopher Sly, who is made to believe that he is a lord. From that stroke onwards, the purpose of the dramatist is to present a shrew from a particular point of view with a particular purpose in mind. The purpose is to create fun, and this we should never forget. Even the most blatantly anti-feminist statements, they will sound anti-feminist. Some of the statements will sound anti-feminist to the feminists of today. But even these blatantly anti-feminist statements of the play have to be seen. Even the assertions of male supremacy, even the assertions of patriarchy have to be seen in this light, that Shakespeare is primarily trying to create fun. For instance, at what point in the play Petruchio remarks about his wife, "She is my goods, my chattel." Now if we place that particular statement in the context in which it occurs, we immediately see that the purpose is funny, the purpose is creation of humor, the purpose is creation of comic irony. The purpose is not to give a statement about what is the status of woman in a society. But more important of all these things is for us to remember that Shakespeare, like the latter day feminists, was comfortable with patriarchy. Now feminists challenge the patriarchal system. Feminists find fault with the very essence of the patriarchal system, where man is in command and woman is in a position of subjugation. They say things should be turned topsy-turvy, that matriarchy in place of patriarchy, that female domination in place of male domination should be the order of the day. Only then the feminists believe justice will be done, balance will be restored. Now, Shakespeare was not a feminist, and if you needed a clear-cut statement from him, it comes in every play almost, implicitly, but very clearly in the Taming of the Shrew, where he shows his absolute comfort with patriarchal system. And this statement comes through the lips of Katharina, but not Katharina the shrew, but Katharina who has gone through the process of exorcism, who has gone through the process of taming and has been converted from a shrew into a woman. Towards the end, she has one of the best speeches in all Shakespeare, where she explains the position of woman and the relationship between the genders, between man and woman. The whole speech needs to be read and read between the lines. The whole speech needs to be analyzed, and it will particularly be an eye-opener for those who go to the extreme in feminist positions. I'll quote some of the verses, some of the lines from that last speech. This is almost Shakespeare. He changed, totally transformed, tamed. Catherine is speaking about man-woman relationship. Thy husband is thy lord, thy life, thy keeper, thy head, thy sovereign, one that cares for thee and for thy maintenance. Such duty as the subject owes the prince, even such a woman oweth to her husband. Before I complete the quotation from this last speech, we must remember, always remember, that Shakespeare has never presented woman in the theological terms in which it is presented by other Christian writers. Not even once anywhere, either in his long poems, either in his sonnets, or in his plays. His concept of the gender relationship, concept of matrimony, concept of defining man and woman is absolutely secular, and it does not emanate in any way from the Bible, which presents woman as the origin of all sin, which presents woman as the destroyer of man's joy and happiness, the bringer of sin, the bringer of death, and the being who deprived man of paradise. You will find this reflected by many Christian writers, even some of the greatest of them. But nowhere, not even at a single place, does Shakespeare even give you the impression that he has anything to do with that concept of woman. This is purely secular. This is pure wisdom, wisdom that has come down to us from the greatest minds ever. Then she concludes the speech. Catherine, the person who has been changed from shrew to a woman, a real woman, she says, I am ashamed that women are so simple to offer war where they should kneel for peace, or seek for rule, supremacy, and sway, where they are bound to serve, love, and obey. And Shakespeare seems to tell us that human society can never enjoy a real health. It can never be a healthy social system unless this kind of relationship exists between man and woman. The Taming of the Shrew makes a very revealing and enlightening reading from the feminist point of view. It is not necessary that we should agree with Shakespeare, or for that matter with any great creative writer or philosopher, but writers like Shakespeare need to be heeded to. Shakespeare needs to be listened to, because all of us are not Shakespeare's. All of us have not that natural, God-given wisdom which these great creative writers possessed. With this, we conclude our brief discussion about the Taming of the Shrew. Goodbye and thank you.